How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got Bryan Alvarez here. We're also going to have Joe SILVA up at the top of the next hour. He's Vice President of Talent Relations for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and we'll talk a little bit at the top of the hour about the UFC pay-per-view, which is coming up on Friday. So we can look forward to that as well. Bryan, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
How's the issue coming along?
Every week I say the same thing, that it's going to be done early tonight. And every Wednesday I have to say that it didn't end up being done early, but tonight I swear it will be done early. Easy night. And then we'll put a lot of feedback up on the site.
Why do you say that? You don't know what's going to happen tonight.
Huh?
I got 17 pages done right now.
That's about where I'm at. Not quite 17, but
yeah,
my equivalent of 17.
I got just about everything done, barring any news. So, by the way, did you get the ratings for last night? Because I have not got them yet.
I haven't got anything yet.
Okay, we'll probably get them during the show. Hopefully we'll get them any minute now, as a matter of fact. But anyway, that's that. I guess we'll start with last night's Raw. What were your thoughts of the show?
I think there were a couple of things on the show that were all right. In fact, I thought the Benoit-Kurt Angle thing at the beginning of the show was awesome. I thought Regal was great. But overall, as a show, I thought it was really disappointing. It was back to the deal where you got two main events on the show. It was Hunter and Test, and then Undertaker and Steve Austin. And you had a DQ finish in both of them. And I thought, if you're going to do a DQ in the main event, at the very least you can do a clean finish, or at least a finish in the semi-main event, or vice versa. But they did neither, so clearly they're setting those up. Or actually, I guess they're setting up Kane and Hunter, and then Austin and Undertaker. And I guess they wanted to tease the matches on this show and then promise them for the pay-per-view. I guess hoping that would make people want to actually see the matches. But the one thing was, I don't think Austin and Undertaker, what they showed last night, was horrible. But I remember 2 years ago when they'd done this feud, about 16 million matches, and at the end of it I just thought, I don't ever want to see this match again. And last night, 2 years later, I still didn't want to see it.
The other thing that was I thought was really bad about the main event, and really bad, is even if they wanted to do a DQ, they did not have to do a 57-second match. And, yeah. You could hear when they did, both DQs, but especially in that second DQ, you just hear that crowd groan, and that's like, it was that WC...
That's a heat we always talk about, there's good heat and bad heat, and that's bad heat.
Yeah, I'm watching this. I was watching the show, and then when that thing was over, and we got calls and emails about it all night long. It's the weirdest feeling. It's like we all know what WCW did wrong, we all know what shouldn't be done, and somehow or other that's what they're doing. And I don't get it. Last night's show actually boggled my mind as far as it wasn't so much the DQs and the run-ins and leaving with the heat and all that, because that's okay to do. But they had gone in there and they had Linda McMahon in this silly, totally defies logic that she will stop divorce proceedings temporarily if Undertaker would get a title shot. So if anything, they're promising more than a usual main event, because if it's if you're going to stop your divorce proceedings over it, you expect something more than say 57 seconds and then a run in DQ. And then they did that short match, like a non-match, and that was one of the things that people complained about when, Nitro started falling apart was, the obvious predictable run and finish by the heels and the short match, so you really don't get a match anyway. And there they did both of them. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at that last hour of the show, between that and the China match, and it was horrible. The China Lita mic work, which had all kinds of problems, that wasn't their fault, as I found out that it was some time cues that were, or some cues that were messed up that was not their fault. That's why the music played and things like that. Nevertheless, when China and Lita were done talking, boy, I sure didn't want to watch them wrestle.
No.
I didn't even want to ever see China again when that thing was over.
She's obviously going to do the heel turn, but, it's going to be an easy heel turn, I'll tell you that, and I don't know why, So
what?
Can you imagine that match? Lita's big thing is her high flying. Her mat wrestling is not too good, and China's pretty much horrible. To think of those two in there having a match together, it's not looking good.
Yeah. All right, well, we got Joe SILVA. I thought Joe SILVA was going to top the second hour, but we got Joe SILVA here right now. Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing really good. Joe, might as well talk about, bring up the show for Friday and everything. It's from was it Trump Toss from Hall and everything. How's ticket sales going?
It's going really well. Expect to sell out, definitely.
Okay. Looking at this show, I guess we'll talk
By the
about
way,
this
tickets
more.
not on sale for the June show yet?
I believe they go on sale today.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's going to be very interesting. Do you have a lot of pub going into the ticket sales for New York?
Yeah, we're going to. I mean, this show will be very, very heavily hyped. There's already been an ad in one of the New York Post or something. One of the papers there had an ad with Elvis versus Tito.
So you've announced that match officially?
Yes.
Okay. Well, before we get ahead of ourselves and talk about the June show, why don't we run down the matches on this show, and then we'll start talking a little bit about the June show. This is the show, of course, this Friday night. Why don't you run through the matches?
All right. We've got, in the prelim fights, we've got Tony D'Souza's undefeated John Lewis fighter taking on Steve Berger. That's in the welterweight category. Steve Berger's beaten Shoney Carter, who's undefeated in our show twice. Another prelim, we've got Joey Gilbert, who's done very well at Abu Dhabi. He's fought judo. He's taking on B.J. Penn. B.J. Penn is amazing. I don't know that I've ever heard so much hype about anybody from so many different camps. I've got John Lewis saying he's untouchable, Frank Shamrock, Matt Hume. Everybody's ever rolled with this guy. They really think he's going to be the next big thing. So they're fighting in our lightweight division, which is 155. We've got at welterweight, we've got Shoney Carter, won twice in our show, taking on Matt the Terra Serra, who's one of Renzo Gracie's top students, just did really well in Abu Dhabi, beat the highly favored Jean-Jacques Machado, went all the way to the finals. And Shoney Carter has got a whole lot of experience versus a kid who is, known as a phenomenal athlete. That's going to be really interesting.
But before you get going, what did you hear about Jean-Jacques Machado? Because as far as Abu Dhabi, I mean, after losing to Matt Serra, he came back in that absolute. And, I mean, he submitted some great people that were much bigger than him.
Jean-Jacques Machado is a bad dude. In that sport, the sport of submission wrestling, pound for pound, there's probably nobody better overall. I mean, and that shows you how good Matt Serra was. And apparently, he had it down, and Matt showed how good he was and beat Jean-Jacques, but Jean-Jacques came back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Another Renzo Gracie student we have at light heavyweights can be Ricardo Big Dog Almeida. He had just fought in Pride and won. He's taken on undefeated Olympic silver medalist Matt the Law Lindland.
Now, I think that's a really... This match I'm real intrigued by because I've seen Ricardo Almeida fight, and he's a really well-rounded guy. I mean, he's the real deal. He can strike. He's in great condition and excellent grappler. Matt Lindland, Olympic silver medalist, so he's going to probably have, of course it's Greco, but he's going to probably have an advantage in the pure wrestling, and he's a real mentally tough guy. In fact, Matt Lindland just won the Nationals a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I just saw him win it. It was in Vegas, and I got to see it live, and I tell you what, he went up in weight class, and he's just got away. I was with Jeff Blatnick there, and he was just saying he really likes Matt Lindland because he's such an intelligent fighter. He always finds a way to win, and he was down in that match. I pretty much thought it was over. I think there was something like 30 seconds left, like time was running out, and he body lifted the guy and got the win. So he always seems to pull out victory one way or another. So that should be a good fight. We've got light heavyweight. What I think is for all the insiders, this is one of the most interesting matches on the card is Kevin Randleman going down, light heavyweight, and fighting Chuck Liddell.
Now, just to make this clear, because I'm actually not sure of myself, is light heavyweight 205 or 200?
It's 205.
Okay.
It's 204.9 is the max.
So he's really not going down much because he was fighting at 210 anyway.
Right. So, but the thing is now he'll get to fight people who are closer to his size. So that's a big advantage for Kevin.
Yeah. Liddell is the kind of an opponent who could give him problems because standing up, Liddell's going to be tougher than Kevin. Kevin's the better wrestler, but if he can't take Liddell down, he could be in trouble. That's the way I read the fight.
Yeah, Kevin is so explosive with his takedowns. I think early on Kevin will get them, but Chuck is very good at weathering the storm, and as the wrestler gets more tired, absorbs some leg kicks, it could get a lot more difficult later for Kevin to take him down. Chuck is very good, and he showed what he can do against a decent wrestler in Monson, but Kevin is a much higher level wrestler, so it'll be interesting to see. Chuck's got a good wrestling background himself. and that's why his takedown defense is so good.
Yeah.
Then we've got a heavyweight Pete Williams from Lions Den coming back to the UFC and taking on the nearly 7-foot-tall Semi Schilt, current king of Pancrase.
I thought you were going to say Gan McGee, but I knew it was
somebody he was going to say.
Bryan loves that name. But Semi Schilt, having seen both of them, is far better than Gan McGee.
Yes. You know, and Schilt, you just got to watch those knees. I put together a little, when I was telling my guys who he was, I put together a little highlight tape, and it's just him knocking guys out left and right with knee after knee after knee. Guy Metzger and Funaki and Suzuki. It'll be interesting. Just he is the king of Pancrase, and I give Pancrase a lot of respect. But most of the people he fights there are smaller.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what he does with the good real heavy.
You know, I mean, he did standing up get hammered pretty good by Gilbert Yvel when they fought.
I agree, and I always say, I'm the one who's telling people, if you go, you know what the rules of a fight are, and you enter into it, and it's a win or a loss. But I really feel those rules severely hampered Semi Schilt. Schilt would get him down on the ground, work for submission, and they'd stand him up.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Gilbert Yvel is the greatest fighter in the world if the rules are tailored to him.
Exactly. You know.
But if they're not tailored to him, any good wrestler's going to beat him.
I think that if the last Pride show was a good example too. If you change the rules, you change the fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, different people are going to win. So that's what will be interesting to see. What will he do under UFC rules? He'll have 5 minutes to work, and I don't know that he wants to be on the ground with Pete. He wanted to be on the ground with Gilbert because Gilbert has no submissions.
Yeah.
Pete does. So I would think that he would try the knee standing up, try to use his reach, and you know, either guy, I think they both want to start standing off, and whoever's getting the better of it, the other guy's going to then try to take it to the ground.
I think Pete shouldn't want to stand with this guy. He's giving up so much reach.
He is.
I mean, that's the one thing when you're fighting a guy who's like 6'10", 6'11", or legit. That's a legitimate height.
Gilbert Yvel gave up the reach, too. But sometimes, I mean...
But Gilbert Yvel's a better stand-up fighter than Pete, I think.
Pete just came off of like a 5-second knockout over Roger Neff, and he did, knock out Mark Coleman. So sometimes even if you can say it's not in the fighter's best interest to strike, sometimes that's not what's in their head.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes they feel like, no, I'm a striker now, and, you don't know what they're going to do till they get in there.
He's an experienced fighter.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting.
Okay.
And we've got for the UFC World Welterweight Championship, Pat, the Croatian sensation, undefeated in our show, 7-0. He's taking on Carlos Newton, dropping down to that weight division for the first time. I think it's going to be a really interesting match. Carlos Newton is almost always a very entertaining fighter. He's an excellent athlete, and he's really good with submissions. He's been working on his stand-up. Pat, on the other hand, he's had some lackluster performances. He'd been hampered by injuries, but he tells me this is the healthiest he's felt in years.
I was going to ask about that.
Him. Huh?
Yeah, because he's been banged up a lot in the last couple of years.
He really has, but he apparently went and got some good rehab, and he feels that injuries are not going to be a problem for him here. That he's 100%. I think he also sees this is his opportunity. He's gotten some flack for it. He's taken on some subpar opponents, which is not his fault. But now he's got a name opponent that people have respect for, so this is his chance to shine. And I think that he knows that. So, hopefully we'll see the best Pat Miletich, that he can be. Then for our UFC World Heavyweight Championship, we've got the champion, Randy, the Natural Couture, also undefeated in UFC, taking on Pedro the Rock Izzo, 6-1 in the UFC. And I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I think it's going to be really tough. Once again, Randy's one of those guys, one way or another, in the UFC, he always finds a way to pull it out.
Well, I think that the variable here, I think we both know what Randy can and can't do. The variable is Pedro Izzo, because Pedro Izzo is either the toughest guy in the world or the most boring fighter in the world. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on if he's going to get aggressive with the guy and if his head's in it, because he's had some bad matches and he's had some spectacular performances.
Pedro generally does better if you bring the fight to him. If you make him fight, you knock somebody out. Where he's been in trouble is where he's had people who've backed off of him, and then he hasn't wanted to come forward, and they just get into a staring match, which is not good. But I do know that since the Kevin Randleman fight, he was, really yelled at by his mentor, Marco Huas, who he just idolizes. And Huas, felt like that, he embarrassed himself in the group. And since then, I think Pedro has he knows he needs to be more aggressive. Also, this is his second shot at a world title, and he knows that. So I think that he's going to give it everything he's got. He knows if he loses again, he's really going to have to go through some people and all to ever earn another title shot. It's not like it could be any kind of automatic thing. So I think that's really going to push him to perform to the top that he can. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be a really good match. And I think I certainly think that the winner of that would be, have to be considered, if not the number one, maybe the number two heavyweight in the world.
Now, now, how readily available is the show going to be, and are there any breakthroughs as far as cable? One of the big questions we've had, it's been on the show actually the other day, regarding with WCW and ECW going out of business. There's a lot less marquee events on your pay-per-view calendar, and UFC and Pride are what I would call the obvious, answers to that, because they both run regular shows. And I don't know if the cable companies have figured that out, but somewhere 6-9 months down the road, I think that they may look at those ledgers and go, God, we're not taking in as much money on pay-per-view as our budget says we're supposed to. And then we've got these two events that are out there that can do, decent numbers, and we're not carrying them for political reasons that no longer hold water. I think you would think that makes sense. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you could just apply logic to everything, we would have been on TV a long time ago. But there are a lot of things that are going well for us, in that my take on it is that simply the cable companies do need programming, but certain programming is not worth the flack that it will get, is being seen with wrestling now. Where, yes, maybe they have decent ratings, but for the negative associations that they feel out there being associated with wrestling is not worth it to them. But for our sport, being that we are now approved by the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, we're trying to get approved by Las Vegas and New York, that if we can get those things to happen, I think it takes away that stigma. They want programming, and if now they could have something to point to and go, oh, well, the sport has changed and it's safe now, and these people who it's their job to say that this is a safe sport, say that it is a safe and legitimate sport, I don't see why they would have a problem showing it then.
Now, what about free TV, like weekly television, which we've talked about many times?
I mean, that would certainly be the ideal situation, and down the road, if we get on pay-per-view, I would hope and think logically that would be something we'd look to do. If you can, I think that's one of the things that's really hurt boxing, is there was a time when you could see boxing on all the major networks and see fighters on the way up and get to know them and learn them, and then it was worth you paying money to see them on a pay-per-view or a live event. And, I think that's necessary, to get this sport as big as it can be, but that's still a ways down the road. Real quick, I just wanted to go through, because it's confusing. We did change our weight classes. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're currently looking, there's like a total of 9 that the New Jersey Athletic Commission set down. From the moment we have plans to use about 5 that we'll be using. In the future, you have more shows and all that, then we can bring in people of the other weight classes. But right now, starting from the smallest, we have the lightweight category, who the current champion is Jens Pulver, and that weight is 145 to 154.9. We have welterweight, and the champion is Pat Miletich. That weight is 155 to 169.9. We have middleweight, the new class, which is now currently vacant, and that weight is 170 to 184.9. We have light heavyweight, which is 185 to 204.9, and the current champion is Tito Ortiz. And our heavyweight is from 205 to 264.9 with the current champion, Randy Couture.
After the show, your next show is going to be at the Continental Airlines Arena on June 29th. It'll also be a pay-per-view. It'll be the biggest undertaking, as far as biggest arena that UFC has ever been held in the United States. hopefully the biggest crowd that you'll have ever drawn. I think the record's probably Cobo Arena with Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, which sold out. So it's a little over about 10,000 people. The main event is Tito Ortiz and Elvis Sinisic, and there's been already some criticism of that because of the size of the venue and of Elvis. And I know, I know this is your match, so you're going to defend it.
Hi, here's the defense. A lot of people who criticize it, they don't have any clue about how, what is actually possible. If you look at, let's just say, for example, I'll pick there's an Underground Forum Top 10. It's a huge forum that's got thousands of our fans that go on it, and they vote a top 10 for each weight class. At light heavyweight, they have Tito Ortiz ranked number 1. Under Tito Ortiz, number 2, you have Vanderlei Silva. Well, Tito beat Vanderlei Silva, and Vanderlei Silva is currently on contract to Pride. Number 3 is Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort is under contract to Pride. Kevin Randleman, they have ranked number 4, and Kevin is fighting on this show. There's no way to know if he's going to win or not, so there's no way that he can be in that slot. Number 5 is Guy Metzger, who Tito Ortiz has also beaten and is under contract to Pride. And number 6 is Elvis Sinisic. So as far as just from a straight who are the best fighters in that weight class thing, you see Elvis is actually like the highest rated contender who would be available to do it. Also, Elvis defeated Jeremy Horn, who was going to get the title shot, who was seen as a top contender, in the world, and he beat him, very convincingly. So there's a certain logic to people who saw that show and all that, know who Elvis is. He's been in the UFC, he won his fight over a top contender, so there's a logical progression to it. Obviously, to try and sell at a big place like that, you'd like to have some sort of maybe, stunt matchmaking to pull people in. But the fact of the matter is UFC has not been on cable in years, and there's nobody that you can really pull in. Some of the names that people throw around as names that are going to drive tickets, they have no clue. They have no understanding that it wouldn't drive tickets for the average people. The only people, in my opinion, who would drive tickets right now are Hoist Gracie, Ken Shamrock, people like that. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just out of the price range. Is that the deal? What is the deal as far as like a potential Hoist Gracie?
That has nothing to do with price. I mean, obviously the price would be very high, but Hoist Gracie doesn't want to fight, I think, top people.
Under the rules?
Top people, and especially under these rules. I mean, you saw Pride, even for as much money as they offer, they had to bend, to every crazy rule that he wanted, and he still lost.
Yeah. But he's still a name that, for whatever reason, he was the pioneer, so it's still.
Yep.
He's still
I agree, and we're in a tough situation too. Of you need a balance. You've got to make marketable fights, but this is a legitimate sport, and there's got to be some kind of logic to it. Is there any way logically that you could give Hoist Gracie, if he would do it, a world title shot?
Well, I think that him fighting, it doesn't really matter if the title would be up. I'm just saying if you could, put it this way, you can't get the fight, but if you could get the fight, Hoist Gracie versus Frank Shamrock at 185, that would be bigger than the title fight anyway.
Oh, yes, it would, but it's an impossible fight to get.
Yeah, I know.
If Frank can't fight anyways till at least November.
Is that how long it's going to be with the shoulder?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
He says he does want to come back and fight, but it won't be till November. He's rehabbing his shoulder after shoulder surgery. So, yes, that would be a big fight, but Frank is not available.
Okay, and he is going to be announcing, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what other stuff can you talk about as far as the June 29th show? I know that the Pele Dave Monet match has been out on the internet. I don't know what other matches have been out on the internet. I know that you have certainly a tentative card booked. You're booked way ahead of time, so.
Yeah, it's just a matter of contracts are all been sent out, but it's now you got to wait for them to get signed. A lot of things can happen between the sending out of a contract and them actually getting it done. Like Dave Monet and Pele, those aren't signed yet. The rumors out there on the internet, and I'd love to do that fight, but you got to get both guys signed. I know that Pele is most likely going to fight in Pride on May the 27th.
Now, what matches are you hearing about Pride May 27th? Because I think the only official match is Fujita Takayama, and I just watched Takayama wrestle in 2 matches last night, and I'm very scared for his safety if it's a shoot.
Yeah.
Because he's not in good shape, and the only thing with him is
that match has gotten serious criticism. Certainly
oh yeah, I know.
American fans.
Yeah, but because American fans don't understand the box office, and Pride is Pride is still driven by, for better or for worse, it's driven a lot by those pro wrestlers.
Right.
As far as ticket sales.
Very different. We're looking at 2 very different kinds of audiences, and that's why for the American audience, what I'm trying to do is, I don't book so much for just one huge fight. I mean, you want all the huge fights you can get, but it's such a toss of the dice, and that you could put together the best match on paper, but it's up to the fighters themselves, and that match may actually turn out to be crummy. You don't know till they fight. And sometimes a match that doesn't seem as interesting on paper can be a great fight. Like, I don't think anybody expected Pedro Hizzo and Josh Barnett to be so good.
Oh, no.
But they just surprise you. So what I try to do instead is just top to bottom have, a very solid card with all serious contenders, all real names, and then hope out of those that you get some really good fights. But there's no way people think that they can predict. People have tried in this sport to predict what's going to be an exciting fight, and you're wrong as many times as you're right. So to me, it's more important, let's just get the best guys in the world and put them against each other. But I want to bring make it more legitimate in that you're not having total no-name guys who nobody's ever heard of coming in for championship matches or things like that.
Now, getting back, before we get back on the Pride thing, I want to ask you about one of your favorite fighters, and a name that someone asked me about just this morning, and that is Ruma Sato and also Hayato Sakurai. Being that you've got Uno, and I know you're trying to get Uno back for a future show, as far as getting those guys in as well.
It does look like, because they are both under contract, it does look like for the Meadowlands show we'll have Karu Uno versus Fabiano Iha.
Okay.
But Iha got down to 155.
What about Sato or Sakurai?
I'm just not interested in Ruma Sato. He's just not that exciting to me.
Yeah, okay, right.
Dave knows I'm a huge Ruma Sato fan. I'm certainly doing my best and trying to communicate with the Shudo organization. I know that Sakurai has done magazine articles where he said it's very important for him to fight in the UFC, so it's something we'd like to do, but there are certain difficulties in it, and I understand them, that if the show came to us right now and went, hey, you know what, we'd like to use Tito Ortiz, and be like, yeah, I'm sure you would, but it's not going to happen. Those are 2 of Shudo's biggest stars. And do they, want them to go fight somewhere else? I don't know.
Now, what are you hearing as far as the Pride show coming up on the 27th?
Just all kinds of rumors. Nothing confirmed. Originally, one of the rumors that was strong was Vitor Belfort versus Guy Metzger. Now I'm hearing that will not happen. Mm-hmm. People, apparently Guy Metzger has said on the internet or whatever that he considers him and Vitor friends and he'd rather fight somebody else. So I don't know what's going to happen with that.
That's an interesting statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think that sounds like?
It makes things very difficult. There's some controversy because I have this unwritten rule, but I'm trying to stick with it in the show of not putting multiple fighters in the same weight class from the same camp. Right,
the Matt Hughes rule.
Well, that's how I keep Matt Hughes out. Anyways, Matt Hughes lost twice in a row. I think he's a talented fighter. But right now, here's what the mathematical thing that people don't understand about this show. Let's say that, right now we do about 6 shows a year. And I have 6 TV matches a show. That's 36 fights for an entire year. Now I have 5 weight classes to divide those between. So that's 7 matches?
Yeah.
7
roughly.
matches in a weight class for a year. Now, people are winning, people are your champions, you guarantee them 3 fights. So just mathematically, how many people can I have in a division? You know, that's the toughest thing. There's a lot of good people I like to bring in the show, and there's just not really much space. You can't sign up everybody because you would not be able to get them all the fights that they require. So what I'm trying to do now is only really bring in the very, very top people, top prospects, champions of other organizations, top-rated guys of other organizations, people who have beaten names, you know, to get in the show. You will not see a situation where here's a guy and he's never done anything and it's his first fight and he's in the UFC.
I want to take you, what are your thoughts, and I don't think this match will ever happen, although it was front page news today in Japan, about Rickson Gracie and Riki Choshu. By the way, there's a front page, there's a front page story in, I think it was Honichi, one of the Japanese newspapers, you know, said that was going to happen. I've checked since that story came out in Japan, and nobody believes that it's a done deal, nor does anyone believe that Rickson Gracie is going to do a pro wrestling match. But New Japan, of course, has wanted that specific match for some time now, for all year. Everyone wants Rickson Gracie on the show because Rickson Gracie, until he loses his first match, is a ticket seller, and realistically, I think Rickson probably only has about one match left because he's almost 42 years old. Yep.
And we've never seen what he can really do against, you know, a top-level opponent.
Well, at his age, realistically, you would think a top-level guy of his size should be able to beat him. Just by the fact, with nothing else, just by saying that he's 42.
Well, they want him to do a pro match and do a job?
Oh, I'm sure that's what they would want.
I don't see that happening.
You know what I mean? I'm sure that's but I don't see that end up happening.
All I would say is that Rickson Gracie has a black belt in business. You know, and I don't hold it against the guy.
I don't either.
The guy knows how to get maximum money for minimum risk, and hey, good for him. You know, it irritates me more as the drones or the people who want to believe he's the greatest fighter in the world when he hasn't beaten a top 10 guy to prove it. But for him, you know, hey, that's smart.
No, and you know, he books himself against big-name pro wrestlers, makes huge paydays, draws huge crowds, you know, and what can you say? That's business.
Yeah, I mean, if Mike Tyson can make more money than he can in boxing, fighting safe pro wrestlers, don't you think he would do it?
Or Foreman or any of them.
Yeah, I think anybody would. You know, fighting is a very tough sport, and if there's a way to maximize your money and minimize your risk, I think most people would do it. So that's what he's good at.
I remember when Lennox Lewis won the title, which is kind of a funny story too. But when Lennox Lewis won the title, they were talking about, you know, the big money fight with Tyson, and then people were going, but what about like David Tua or some other names that were considered more legitimate contenders, but no marquee value? And George Foreman goes, hey, wait a minute. You know, you go, if there's a lot more money in Tyson, you know, you don't fight David Tua, although he ended up fighting David Tua anyway. But I mean, you know, that was the basic thing. Is like, if there's a big money fight, even if you know and all the insiders know that maybe the guy is not the toughest guy, but there's more money in it, I mean, that's the better fight to take because, you know, fighting is not, you know what I mean? I mean, that macho thing will only get you so far. If you always want to fight the top guy every single fight, you're not going to be unbeaten.
You know what is? There's a little thing, though, that kind of counteracts that in a way. The people, it's even more in our sport than boxing, but a fight that just happened really proves it. People take these safe fights.
And then they don't train hard.
Safe.
Yeah, well, that's because they relax. So Frank Shamrock, Jeremy Horn, same thing.
Well, the thing is that you just had Lennox Lewis lose, you know, taking a safe fight, you know, building up for a Mike Tyson fight. And that happened to him before. Both Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis, who had fought in the Olympics, were kept apart from each other because, like, we're going to build it. We'll fight some safer guys, and we'll build it up, and it'll be a big money fight. And they both lost before they ever got there. And that's what I have to stress to people in this sport. It's better. People are like, how are you getting people to fight such tough fights in the UFC? Because there's no tomato can fights in the UFC anymore. And it's because, well, it's been proven. If you go out there and you fight another guy who's considered to be a top guy, a really tough guy, somebody that people have respect for, if you lose, it doesn't hurt you that bad. A great example of that is Tito Ortiz and Frank Shamrock. Tito Ortiz's stock went up after that fight, not down.
Yeah.
But
or Josh Barnett and Pedro Rizzo.
Exactly. Josh won on the show before, and nobody wanted to see him back. Josh lost on his next showing of the show, and everybody wants to see him back.
Before we go, because this is actually the first show that you guys have put together. Like, I mean, the last show you had like 3 weeks' notice. The thing changed. The ownership changed hands, and you had 3 weeks to put together a show. As far as the pyro and all that type of stuff, what's your thoughts on that? Where does that stand as far as the overall show? What are we going to see on this show that we haven't seen before in UFC as far as not the fights?
I think that people were impressed with the last one and what we did on short notice. I expect this to be a lot better. I expect to see, better graphics, to see better fighter pieces, better fighter entrances. Also, we should have, for the 2 prelims, which are really good matches, I expect to see at least highlights and recaps of the prelims. Okay.
And anything else you learned from watching WrestleMania?
Don't trust Stone Cold, I guess.
That's a hell of a show, though, wasn't it?
That was an excellent show. It's very good.
Yeah, and you're lucky that's the one you saw, not the one Sunday.
Cool. You guys take care.
Okay, thanks a bunch, Joe. We'll be talking to you later in the week. Okay, and of course the UFC is taking place Friday night from Atlantic City at the Trump Taj Mahal with Randy Couture and Pedro Rizzo in the main event. And then there'll be a follow-up pay-per-view on June 29th from the Meadowlands. I want to mention 2 things real quick. Sources at TNN pretty much confirmed that June 16th is going to be the start-up date for the TV show, for the WCW show. It's not finalized, but that is the date that everyone is targeting right now, so it's the most likely date. And also, for those of you in Canada, starting Thursday, SmackDown is going to air an hour earlier on the Score. It's going to air at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so those of you who live in the U.S. border, if you can get Score, and I don't know if you can actually do that. I guess if you had a dish, you probably could. You could actually get SmackDown an hour earlier. The reason they did it was because a lot of the cities on the border, the feeling from the Score, which is partially owned by WWF, is that they were losing some viewership to the UPN stations in border cities. So they're actually going to get it first by an hour. They also have a replay.
An hour early?
Yeah, SmackDown will air from 7 to 9 Eastern Time in Canada. And,
does that mean you'll have to bleep ass in both hours?
Theoretically, I guess it would mean that. Oh, that stuff is so... Isn't it like the stupidest thing in the world?
The first hour.
Yeah. But the whole time thing. I mean, if there was a demographic difference in the audience in various hours, that's a hell of an argument for, like, different standards. But when the audience is exactly the same... that's one of those arguments that ignorant people make that don't know what they're talking about, and that
Vince just makes it because he knows that nobody's going to look at it.
Right, exactly.
Vince knows Bob Costas doesn't know, how many kids are watching during each hour. Yeah. So he says it.
Yeah, and it sounds good. It sounds good from the outside, Anyway, here's our poll on Backlash. This is a scary poll, by the way. Thumbs up 16%, thumbs down 12, in the middle 25. So it's basically a thumbs in the middle show, which has kind of been the consensus. Didn't see the show 47, which is about where WCW was, about halfway down the swirl. So that was pretty scary there. By the way, I don't think there's going to be any ratings today. I think that we'll have them for the show tomorrow. Let me go through a couple of emails here, and then we will start with phone calls. Any other news to talk about, Brian, before we get to emails?
I don't think so.
Okay. It's from Tom Green, not the Tom Green, Vince Russo's favorite actor. In your opinion, what was the best war games of all time? There were so many awesome ones. I mean, I saw some house show war games, in the 80s.
How about the one where Warrior appeared in smoke?
How about the one with Harlem Heat when they first came in? With the Shockmaster, remember that one?
Oh, my God.
No, I think the first one, maybe, and the Phoenix one are the ones that stand out in my mind, but they did 4-star matches and 4.5-star matches in war games at house shows. I mean, I remember seeing one in L.A. and one in Oakland, and I think it was Oakland or San Francisco, whichever city it was. That was just incredible. Like 25 minutes of great excitement. And that damn JJ, we got to get JJ on and get the technique of always picking that coin toss. Let's see. This is, do you think Paul Heyman's influence on WF has contributed to the recent questionable booking issues? It seems that ever since he arrived, fans and insiders have been concerned with the direction of the WF. Is it just timing or is there correlation? It's just timing. Actually, believe it or not, I have a pretty decent idea of what he wants to do and some of what he gets, and I don't want to get him in trouble, so I'll just leave it at that. But I think that There is a correlation as far as timing that a lot of people have been kind of disgruntled with WWF product, but they were even leading up to it. I think a lot of it also is that with no WCW, when we see these patterns, it's kind of scarier because WCW really did go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What was worse, the Crash Holly vignette or the Lita China interview? I think the Lita China interview to me was worse. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah. Lita China.
Yeah.
The Crash thing was just, I felt sorry for the guy to have to do something like that. China and Lita was like, I was watching it going, I hope I never have to see this again.
And you will. But the thing with Crash reminded me so much of that's the stuff that Russo used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, like with Hawk's drug
There was a lot of that on the show last night. In fact, there was. I think it was during the card game. I just thought to myself, Vince Russo's got to be back because I'm like writing the report as I'm watching the show, and I just keep writing about these vignettes, and I'm just writing a vignette after vignette after vignette, and I'm not writing about any matches. And it was at that point I just realized there have been about 600 vignettes on the show and about 2 matches so far, and this is just straight out of Russo's book. And then Crash gets drunk like Hawk.
Yeah, well, Hawk. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. How long do you think it's going to be, if it even gets off the ground, before Eric Bischoff sees that nobody's watching Matt Rass and tries to bring in Hogan and Nash to increase viewership? It will never happen.
Just watch them.
Yes, just don't even think about that. It will not happen. By the way, we should probably work on getting Bischoff on the show sometime soon. He goes, I can honestly see Hogan going into the ring and beating the crap out of 15 teenagers because they'll never draw money. Let's see. I also got a chance to check out.
They wouldn't even have to have Hogan wrestle. Just during the middle of these matches, cut to backstage, and he could be cutting a promo.
Yeah. He goes. I got to check out their website. I'm surprised they don't have a link for interested investors the way Dave McClain's WOW website does. Oh my God, I didn't even know that they did. Let's see. This is someone who goes, I've noticed that China has lost a lot of muscle. Must be trying to get a softer, girly look, but now she's suddenly squashing everyone. It seems backwards to me. Is this how the WWF
I remember in her book when she said she would never lose her muscle mass no matter what. No matter what anybody told her to do, she would never lose her muscle. That's what made her China, she said. And now she's lost her muscle.
Let's see. I read on the Observer site.
When you really think about it, though, what does she have left now? I was just thinking about this last night. She doesn't have the monster body. She doesn't have the face. What has she got left?
Well, the face is more attractive than the original face.
It is?
Yes, I will say that. It is, yes.
I didn't think either were attractive.
We can do a poll. No, well, I just watched Beyond the Mat about a week ago and saw the original face. Oh, my God. And, when you see Beyond the Mat, we talked about this before. When you see Beyond the Mat, and then, you think about the China that you're watching every week, it's like 2 different people. I mean, this is when she was all muscled up and the different face and whatever.
Quiet.
Everyone liked her. Remember that? Remember China's the nicest person? God. Oh, well. I just read on the Observer site that Kevin Nash wants to team with Scott Hall on the Pillman show. Do you think they'll let Scott Hall attend after he stiffed Melanie Pillman on the donation he promised her? I think they'll let him attend. That is my strong prediction. That they just will.
Maybe they'll frisk him at the door for that $10,000.
Maybe they should at least have like a, what's it called? Like a sobriety test or something like that. Let's see. Yesterday,
wait, did Hall? I thought Nash was the one that shorted her.
Nash, yeah.
Okay, another person said Hall.
No. Nash is the one who had drank way too much and said that he was going to, write a check for $20,000, and then he never did. When he drank so much, and it was just like, he was getting in the spirit of giving. It was like it wasn't Christmas. Yes. And then all of a sudden, he woke up from that. That
would have been almost a whole week's pay for Nash.
I know that more than a week.
Come on now.
Well, actually, what am I saying? It's not a week's pay, Brian. It's like 4 days' pay.
Yeah, it's $30,000 a week, right? It's almost a full week.
$31,000 a week, and he was going to give away 4 days' pay, maybe 5 days. I don't know. I don't have my calculator in front of me.
Can't ask a guy to do sacrifices like that.
I know, especially when you're making 1.6, huh?
Yeah.
So anyway, he woke up and goes, "What did I do?" And then he just kind of that was it. This is from D.L. Burrell, who said, yesterday you and Bryan at one point discussed the new survey which indicated that wrestling fans are more violent than the general populace. We didn't say that. But the survey didn't say that at all. The survey said that among teenagers, especially teenage women, the teenage girls that watch wrestling are more violent across the board than the general public, yes. But it's just high school students. It would be very significant to know if those numbers for the United States would be significantly different from a similar study of Japan if one has ever been done. What I could tell you is, I can't tell you for sure. I don't know one hasn't been done, but I would seriously doubt that correlation would hold true for Japan, although I don't know. Clearly, Japan is the home of such small-scale violent idiocies as Big Japan and FMW, but the predominant promotions have always been All Japan and New Japan. New Japan and All Japan clearly have kept athleticism as the focus of the wrestling. The biggest stars of the decade worked matches that never insulted your suspension of disbelief, whether it was Hashimoto's kicks, Tenryu's chops, Liger's Shota, that's the palm deal, or Muto's moonsault. The moves evoked athleticism and dramatic competition. No one ran around shaking the ropes and beating their chests unless you were in a comedy match. Seldom do you see someone swinging a chair, breaking a table, or pile-driving a woman. I don't remember anyone pile-driving a woman in All Japan or New Japan, that's for sure. Some chairs, a few tables, not a lot. When
Mrs. Baba never took a pile-driver through a table?
No, she never did. When Masahiro Chono started using chairs in his matches in the middle of the decade, it was because his neck was trashed and it was not the norm. It helped him become one of the hottest guys in the country. Masao and Kawada had matches that will forever be classics, often going an hour, a couple of hours, leaving fans breathless time and time again. How many times did they go through Fukuzawa's table? I don't remember them ever doing that. How many times did they do the finish where Kawada hits Masao with the title belt for the pin? I don't remember that one either. They didn't need to. The focus on their athletic abilities of athletes and the craftsmanship they used to make the incredibly dramatic roller coaster ride of their matches.
How about Kawada coming through the mat?
I don't remember that one either. In the U.S., WCW and WF emphasized a product heavily on entertainment as opposed to sport. As the decade progressed, the ECW influence fomented a trend toward more violence and spectacular stunts. Mick Foley, the Hardys, even Public Enemy made violence in wrestling not only standard but passé. We got not only hardcore title matches, but commentators laughing their way through them. Yeah, that was Tony Schiavone. While wrestlers were giving each other concussions, all for that coveted mid-card status. Mick Foley took a bump off the top of a cell and became a legend. A few years later, Chris Kanyon took an even crazier bump. Not only does no one remember it, but he's not even employed anymore. Yeah, but he will be in a week. Elegance and craftsmanship have little place in American wrestling. Even Steve Regal, perhaps the most elegant wrestler out there. I don't know about the word elegant.
Elegant?
Yeah. Elegant's not really a good word. I don't know if Steve Regal would even like being called elegant. Spends his time getting pummeled with trash cans and playing a comedy player instead of working a flawless 10 to 15-minute match. Triple H is undisputedly one of the best the U.S. has to offer. Does he know 20 moves? I bet he does. Even in his matches, he's guilty as anyone of the frame, grab you by the head, and lead you over here for our next series of punch-kick, table-breaking spots maneuvers. I'm so convinced this survey doesn't reflect the effect of wrestling so much as the ascendancy of sports entertainment. I have no idea if All Japan of the early or mid-'90s could draw in the United States. I think in the early or mid-'90s, that style would have worked in the United States, but the countries have gone in separate directions, and I think now it wouldn't. But again, it would require education, and if you had really super charismatic guys and a promotion that was logically built with guys like that, that were, that you could get over, it might. Today, like if you started it tomorrow and you just had guys that nobody knew doing it, of course it wouldn't work. Anyway, so that's much for that. Let's see, it's from Chris, who goes, how bad was the China Lita interview? First of all, I don't know if the laughing was intentional, but it seemed like they both didn't take it seriously. Yeah, I know. China spanking any other female is a thought that doesn't strike me as appealing. Third, Lita, and I don't like the girl despite her not being, I like the girl despite her not being the best of workers, but she needs a whole lot of work on her promo. She sounded like Ahmed Johnson. I also fear, with Lita being as over as she is, China versus Lita may turn into a Jeff Hardy versus Triple H situation. It will not. She does not have that pull. It will not. So anyway, that's the deal. Let's see. That's more about China. A lot of China stuff. Let's see. Last night was so strange.
You think in the end it'll end up with Stephanie and Test finally getting married?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I do not.
Sometimes in the back of my mind I think that.
I don't think it at all.
It's like a storyline they've been dragging on forever.
I just think that they have no idea what to do with Test, so they keep bringing up the one thing everyone remembers, that he got jilted at the altar.
And killed by Hunter. Again.
And he got killed again last night in 57 seconds, or whatever it was. Could you explain? That's another China one. God, lots of China letters. Could you explain to me one thing? China totally destroyed Trish, Molly, Holly, and Ivory, but Lita, on a well-contested, Lita had well-contested, evenly matched matches with Molly and Trish, and even lost to Ivory. Now we're supposed to believe it's going to be an even match, because it will. Actually, China will probably squash for the whole match, and Lita will sneak over, is what I'm guessing. The only good
China
thing in
will
that
kill her
segment,
afterwards.
Yeah. The only good thing in that segment, maybe in the entire last hour, was Trish's facial expression of pure disgust during Chyna's lame spanking speech. I think Trish was acting. Anyway, let's go to Todd. Todd, what's happening?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Dave?
Doing really good.
How you doing, Bryan?
Hey.
Hey, I got my first issue of Figure 4 today, so I wanted to praise you. I was enjoying it very immensely.
Oh, cool.
Although, unfortunately, it isn't as fun to read in class because I can't keep from bursting out in laughter.
Oh, no, you can't read Figure 4 in class.
Yeah, I've observed for years. It's black and white, and, you know, it just blends in with your paper.
It's not that funny.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Want to discuss two things. First of all, the booking of last night's show, which I thought was absolutely atrocious.
Did you? So did I.
Yeah, the thing was, like, it went to the point where it just made me angry, because in the past weeks it seems like they didn't have any ideas, and at this week it just seemed like they didn't care. Like, they were like, okay, let's throw out a couple matches here, you know, we won't really have a conclusion to them, but they didn't really have any interest in even making the viewer feel fulfilled of, you know, staying up to watch it. I mean, the DQs were just horrible. You know, it really, there was no purpose to the matches. It was the same thing we've seen over and over again with Taker, Triple H, and Austin Taker. And what's worse is, like, the Angle-Benoit feud, which I think, like, goes across well. It's sort of becoming like those WCW feuds in '97, where there are these two guys, and, you know, they have great matches, and it's a pretty good storyline, but the crowd doesn't care because they know that when the storyline ends, they're just going to go on to two other random guys, and, you know, no one's going to get elevated from it. It's just a mid-card feud, and that stigma is going to make it really difficult to get over feuds if they don't sort of diversify the card pretty quickly.
I just don't like the fact that Hunter and Austin are being pushed to these guys that are so far above everybody else that nobody can even compete. So how can you take anybody seriously?
You know, it's just like with the Test thing. You know, like they could have done that Hunter Test match with the same end result, you know what I mean? But given Test like 5 minutes of offense, and then at the end Hunter leaves him laying and gets DQ'd, and that would be fine. But by doing it so quickly, it was like, you know, you don't build him up before you take him down, you just take him down.
You know, the other thing that annoys me is, I was just reading the recap of Hunter on Bite This, and he's talking about how he's all about the people and all about helping the younger stars, this and that, and that's great. And you can tell from watching his matches that he just watches a ton of Ric Flair. But then when you actually see the way that he treats these people, it's like he doesn't watch any Ric Flair at all. When would Ric Flair have ever gone in there and done what he did at Test?
Yeah, that's right, never.
Yeah.
Ric Flair would have, even if the end result was
or
the same.
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, Ric Flair would have sold them. I mean, Ric Flair, remember Ric Flair, and it was a horrible match, but remember Ric Flair with Rey Mysterio? He gave him 80% of the match.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, and he's a whole lot smaller than
Ray,
Test.
like, had the win at the end.
Yeah, like on a DQ, although their style clash was just abhorrent. I mean, it was like one of the worst Ric Flair matches I ever saw, but
although Ric Flair did the best job in the history of the business selling the top rope Frankensteiner. Like he was just Ted.
Yeah, I remember the same thing with Eddie Guerrero in WCW at one of the August pay-per-views. Like, Flair just bumped all around the ring for him. I don't think Guerrero was ever as over in WCW as he was then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, so.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to discuss was this survey that come out, and it seems like a lot of people just are completely unwilling to look at what the survey is, and sort of the thrust of the survey isn't.
Which survey? Because there's been two. No, we've had two in 2 weeks.
The more recent. Anyway, the sort of a lot of people have, with all these emails, are sort of criticizing the survey and sort of its basis. But I mean, if you're going to accept the survey as scientifically accurate, and it seems scientifically, the methodology is good, and moreover, it seems intuitively correct to me that wrestling teens who watch wrestling are more likely to be violent. But sort of the question then becomes whether it's, and you discussed this very briefly on the show yesterday, whether the violence then is because more violent people are drawn to wrestling, or whether the wrestling causes violence, and just where the causality lies. And I sort of agree with the guy who did the survey that it lies somewhere in between. But for the purpose of playing devil's advocate, there's a very strong argument made that it's the wrestling that's making people more violent. A lot of the surveys that sort of are studying right now the effects in the media of violence within the media say that this violence isn't
violence on. I mean, there's a million surveys that link violence on television to violent behavior. So why wouldn't wrestling fit into that? And the other one is, in fact, that many of those surveys have shown that whether the violence is real violence that they watch, say on a news show or a reality show, or a fake violence in a violent movie, the reaction is the same. So the fact that wrestling violence is not real the reaction, you know what I mean? The causal effect is the same as if it was, say, boxing violence, which is real.
Yeah, absolutely. And moreover, like some of the surveys indicate that in fact a more WWF style is worse, because rather than having a cathartic effect on the audience, what it does instead is that it's sort of more like a cartoon, where the good guy, gets pummeled into the ground, Lita just gets beaten with, a steel chair at the end of the ring, and the next week she's fine again. So rather than something like, like Hannibal, where you see like this gratuitous violence, you get something that's just sort of blown off. So violence just becomes sort of like ingrained into like your everyday routine. Like if you're watching it like 5 times a week, like, there's just this violence every day, and it just passes, and it's just sort of in your life, and, you just sort of accept it as a way of, interacting. And I thought that email earlier was interesting in terms of whether it's sort of the American sports entertainment or whether it's wrestling in general. And I think it's a little bit of both, because, sort of the fundamental premise of wrestling is, two guys fight it out, and try to beat each other up. But at the same time, the new sports entertainment takes it to new levels where, it's more than just sort of beating people up, but you have weapons and chairs and tables and whatnot.
It would be interesting.
I wonder if any of it has to do with how much a person suspends their disbelief when they watch a show. You know what I mean? Like a teenager who looks at it, and for a little while they can actually get into it and believe that maybe it is real. I wonder if that affects them more than somebody who just looks at it as like a spectator going, just analyzing the business aspect of it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of variables. The other one I would be interested in is, and we don't have anything like this, is if we went back, say, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when wrestling was, presented as a more sport-oriented thing, but it was still outlandish, and, the characters were still, pretty wild and everything. If the result was the same on the audience, or perhaps even worse because it was presented as more serious, and, we really don't have anything to compare, like, this form of wrestling that we now see and its effects with, like Japanese wrestling of today, or Japanese wrestling of 20 years ago, or our wrestling of 20 years ago, so we don't really know.
I mean, it's far more violent now. I think that has a lot to do with it. Because, you can't tell me that if teenagers are watching amateur wrestling, which is obviously, a sporting event where everyone's just grappling with each other, they're going to be more violent. But pro wrestling, I was talking about earlier, hitting people with chairs, scheming, everything.
Well, I asked if there's anything on football or hockey. Because, hockey has pretty wild fights.
But those are violent, too.
And those are violent, and if you
a lot more violent like amateur wrestling.
Yeah, if you analyze those sports, what would it be as compared to pro wrestling? We don't know. There's so much data that we don't have. But the fact is that because it did significantly rise with each viewing of wrestling, there is something. There is something to that thing. The people who just want to dismiss it because they don't want to accept it, or try to poke holes in it where there's, where in some cases, I'm not saying there's no holes in that survey, because there are, but a lot of the holes that have been attempted to be poked in it aren't valid either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing on football and hockey I think is interesting too, and I'm not one way decided one way or another in terms of violence. I'm a fan of both those as well, but I think there's sort of a different stigma about when you go about first becoming a fan of pro wrestling in terms of why you're a fan of pro wrestling as opposed to another pro sport, where I don't think the initial interest in terms of football or hockey is going to become because of the violence, but because of the sports of it. And like Bryan was saying, when it's more sports entertainment based, where the idea is you're watching this big soap opera with people beating each other up, like I think a lot of the appeal of it naturally, the first thing you go to would be the fact that people are beating each other up, and that would sort of draw in a different sort of viewer than someone who would accept the violence as something that's just a part of a show in another sport.
I don't know. It's all we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Todd?
I'm trying to think of some other comparisons between now and then. 30 or 40 years ago it was like you set up a match as, I want to wrestle this guy, I want to beat this guy. And now the big thing in wrestling is I want to hurt this guy. This guy made me mad, I want to hurt him. It's not so much about winning and losing as much as it's about hurting people now.
Bryan, when I was a kid, I think they talked about hurting more than they do now.
Really?
Oh, there was a lot more emphasis in the matches on like specific, like I'm going to break his, because they never talk about like I'm going to break his leg, I'm going to break his arm. It's like you want to beat him up and pummel him. But I remember, Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson, their big thing was that they were going to break the guy's leg at the Cow Palace.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it was specific, real bad injuries they used to talk about. I mean, they never talked about breaking a guy's neck or killing them outright dead, but it was breaking. You know, we're going to break his leg. Absolutely, that was like the big thing. I'm going to break his leg and put him out of wrestling for 9 months.
Although, again,
you know, I mean, that was like, you know, so I mean, to me, it had more. It had, in a sense, more brutal overtones then than now.
But that does go back to sort of the original, like what I was bringing up earlier, which is whether like that violence actually encourages violence more or not. Like if you have this person, you know, going out there saying, you know, I'm going to, you know, gouge out your eyes and break your leg and, you know, break you in two, like the audience reaction is sort of this, you know, wow, you know, this is really intense. This is, you know, real violence. Whereas here, you know, and now they're doing even more violent things, but they don't make it seem as big of a deal, so the violence is more accepted as just something natural and part of, you know, everyday society.
I think that
like an injury angle back then would have been an injury angle that would actually put somebody out.
Yeah.
Now you can get dropped from a car and you're back in a week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing about this as compared to before is the repercussions of the violence then were more realistic in that if somebody like had a figure four leg lock on for a long period of time, I mean, the guy would show up, you know, like at the next week, and he'd be limping and his leg would be taped up, so you would get the idea that, you know, these men feel pain. Whereas now, you know, like you said, you know, that you come back and you know, like, you know, you come back from some death-defying thing and you have a scratch, you know, 1 week and the next week you don't even have to scratch, and so it's more, you know, there's no repercussions of the violence, so maybe, so it's in that sense, it's far less realistic.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I had. So you guys have
okay, cool. All right, let me get through a couple of these and we'll get to some more. This is from Jason who goes, I just watched the DirecTV AWA Wrestling Best of the 70s. You know what's funny is was it DirecTV? Last night I was watching DirecTV during wrestling, and they were having a promo for all the different pay-per-views that you get on DirecTV, and of course a lot of WWF clips of Kurt Angle and Triple H, Austin, and all that, and you know, some concert stuff, obviously boxing, and then they had this superstar Billy Graham interview from looked like 75, you know, because those AWA pay-per-views are being put in a lot of the old, you know, WCW and ECW slots. But anyway, best of the 70s. I never saw Andre the Giant's prime. My question is, did Andre really reach the height and weight of 7'4" and 725 pounds? No, not even close.
And then he shrunk at the end of his career.
Andre was about 6'10". Did I ever?
He grew through the years, hit the peak, and then began getting smaller.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story about Andre the Giant when he died in my letter to Sports Illustrated? It's kind of like the Newsweek letter the other day.
I think you did.
Okay, well then I won't waste time.
When they talked about, well, you might as well tell the story again.
Okay. It's the same story as yesterday on the Andy Kaufman thing. But Andre the Giant died, and I had written a couple of articles. I had written one article for Sports Illustrated, and they had called me on a lot of articles, you know, regarding pro wrestling. So anyway, Andre the Giant died in '93. And they did a little thing in the scoreboard and mentioned, you know, he was 7'4", 7'5", or whatever they said. And I just wrote him a quick note, and I just said, you know, nice little thing you did on Andre, but just in the what's the word I'm looking for? In the interest of fairness, in the interest of accuracy, you know, he really was 6'9" or 6'10". He wasn't really 7'4". You know, because your sport, you know, if it was like, you know, Pro Wrestling Illustrated or something, I would have cared less.
Or the Inquirer.
Or the Inquirer, or even a local newspaper. Sports Illustrated, which to me was like, you know, when I read something in Sports Illustrated, I want to believe that it's real, right? Mm-hmm. So I just said, you know, it's just, you know, it's not a big deal, but I just said, like, you know, look, was really 6'9" or 6'10". And they wrote me back, unlike Newsweek, which didn't write me back. But anyway, they wrote me back and they go, we're sure you're right, you're the expert type of a thing. But since everybody else, when he died, said he was 7'4", we don't feel the need to make a correction. And I was just like, well, so much for you.
See, there's the whole thing. Once the story gets out, everyone uses another story for confirmation, and you're screwed.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's real or not. This is from someone who goes, did you see the super card that Mick Foley mentioned in his book? Each Japanese company contributed one match, and they did a $6.6 million live house. I don't think that house was $6.6 million, although it may have been. I was at that show, by the way. If so, can you comment on this?
6.6 million yen.
6.6 million yen is only like $66,000. So it's a lot more than that. But no, they had 13 companies, and each company presented one match, and it was the show put out by Weekly Pro Wrestling, which is the name of a magazine, and sold out the Tokyo Dome. It was a really, really great show. It wasn't the best show I think I've ever seen in my life, but it was up there with the best ones. And All Japan and JWP stole the show, but the IWA match, which was Mick Foley's match, I'll always remember because they were having a hell of a match. It was Mick Foley was in it, Terry Funk was in it, the Headhunters, I think Leatherface, which was Rick Patterson, and Shoji Nakamaki, and is that 6 guys? Yeah, so I think that was the match. And Mick Foley goes to light a table, and it doesn't go up. And they're just standing there, and it's like, and then everyone just goes crazy, because it's like the spot, so everyone's moonsaulting everyone because they just went into a panic because it's 60,000 people, and the big spot of the match just didn't happen because the fire didn't catch. And I mean, Terry Funk does this moonsault to the floor and then starts selling his knee like he's done, okay? Like, I mean, I'm watching this, and I'm going like, first of all, he's up there, and I'm just going like, and I know he's done this move. He's done this moonsault off the top rope to the floor. He's done it before, okay? And he's done it a few times since, okay? But I knew that, like, before when he's done it, it's always been a planned spot. This was like everyone went into panic, and they just didn't want to lose the crowd. So he's up there, and he just goes off that top rope, and I go, Terry, you are done. That's it. And then he sells it like his knee is done. I mean, he sold it like I've never seen anyone sell a knee injury in my life, and I thought, that's it. You know, it's like I just saw Terry Funk's last match, and that idiot came, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking, right? So I go backstage, he's walking around, and he's fine. You know, but that's in the, but anyway, they, you know, it was, they had a good match. The All Japan match was awesome. I think Johnny Ace was in the All Japan match, and, with Misawa and Kawada Kobashi and all those guys, and then the JWP match with the Devil Masami and them was good, but it was like all the all-star stuff, you know, they had UWFI, they had a shoot match from Pancras on the show, New Japan had a match with Hashimoto and Shono, which actually wasn't all that good, but, it was quite a night. I mean, just, you would see like, and every group had their own little audience, right? But All Japan clearly had so much more of an audience in that building than anyone else. I mean, when that Misawa and Stan Hansen, their reactions blew everybody else away. Let's go, speaking of that, actually, we will go to Phil, since Phil's going to undoubtedly talk to us about Japan anyway. And Phil, I got your listing of the top 500, and I'm just glancing at it, and anyway, go ahead.
Cool. We can talk a little about that. You forgot the best match on that show, which was Ryama Go against the Space Jews.
Oh, God, that match was horrible. It was so out of place. It was like it's independent guard.
Dome, Space Jews, Ryama Go. What's horrible about
You know, it's funny. You know, Ryama Go actually got phenomenal crowd reaction because it was kind of like this comedy thing, and he was over at that moment. Never had, you know, just for he had that brief window where he was a cult figure, but, oh God, it wasn't that horrible, but the crowd reaction, people just go, you know, the whole night. So it was pretty funny.
I mean, he's still milking that. He's still wrestling. Ryama Go. You'll still find. I saw him wrestle. You know, I don't know, a match from about 6 months ago. He's still as great as he was too.
Yeah.
So it was just reminding me. I had the world's weirdest 6-man tag team ever was on that. It was like the Portland show where Art Barr had Tanya Harding in his corner. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was in Vancouver, Washington, I think.
Right, and they had the 6-man tag of Colonel De Beers, Psychosis, and Ryama Go.
That is the weirdest.
Who they get? So it's Billy Jack Haynes, Rey Mysterio Jr., and God, who's the third guy?
I don't know, but those two alone is weird enough for me.
Yeah, they had like the third guy was he was some like big, tall, blonde-haired stiff who I think was a Portland worker from that area.
Brian, do you know any big, tall, blonde-haired stiffs?
Big, tall, blonde-haired stiff. No.
It's not Brian Adams.
But I mean, just the 6-man tag of Colonel De Beers, Ryama Go, and Psychosis had to be the weirdest thing in the history of professional wrestling. What else was I going to say? A couple. So you got the 500. What do you think?
I'm just glancing at it right now. I disagree with so many of them, it isn't even funny.
All right, bring it on, baby. We had 125 Santos award about it.
Santos way too high. Hashimoto's way too high.
Really? After that 0-1 match? The entire selection committee, I guess, after that 0-1 match was just like Hashimoto up.
Yeah, Atsuka is way too high, although on the last 0-1 match, I thought that was quite a compelling match where he let Sugiura split his head open like that. I can't see Mike Modest ahead of Kurt Angle. Sorry. Or Daniels ahead of Kurt Angle either. Let me see. Sano's way too high.
Wasn't Angle like 19? I just glanced at it today. I don't have it in front of me.
22.
Angle's 22.
22, wow.
Yeah, Sano 25 is too high. Taue 27 is too high.
Yeah, everybody's got a problem with Tao. I mean, we have in the top 10 up until like this last one.
I do. Vader's too high, and I like Vader, but he's just too heavy now. Let me see. Taka Michinoku hasn't done anything. I mean, I know he's great, but he just hasn't done anything lately.
We had some good matches. Did you see any of his stuff in Japan? He went over there and wrestled some Michinoku Pro shows that were really good. It's hard when you do a list like this. I try to do things like...
come on, 145, come on. I mean, he's really great. I mean, it's like...
the last 2 months of Hunter Helmsley matches, and I've actually got a ability to see pay-per-views now with I'll leave it at that.
We talked about that yesterday.
Last 2 months, the Hardy match was just so terrible, and both those matches on pay-per-views I thought were bad. I mean, he's a limited guy. He's in there when he's in there with somebody who's really good. But I mean, he had chances to have good matches with like lesser opponents in the last 2 months, and he's been really bad.
I don't know. I think he's more complete than a lot of these guys. That are, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. We had a big debate between. Have you seen much Ray Gonzalez in Puerto Rico?
I have not seen Ray Gonzalez in years, so I can't even comment on him. Well, I saw him when he was first breaking in, but I know he's like a super heel, everyone tells me, but I haven't seen him.
I guess the big debate was between who was better between those two, and like Ray Gonzalez was having these great matches with like guys like Carly Colon, who are just terrible wrestlers, and doing so many things. Like they're both kind of Ric Flairish in the sense of.
I probably need to get some tapes of both Puerto Rican groups actually, because I haven't seen them in a while.
Because that was the big argument with Helmsley right below Gonzalez. Was that I don't know? It's just we had him higher, and then just like the last 2 months were just so bad. He hasn't had a good match in 2 months since that Steve Austin match. He hasn't had a good match. I think
Marufuji's too low. He's awesome.
Where is he? Where do we have
97. I mean, he's better than almost everyone on this list.
You really think Marufuji's that good, huh?
He's
awesome. I watched a lot of Marufuji the last. I don't know. He's just he is. He seemed to. I mean, I thought he was really carried by Hoshikawa in the 0-1 match.
Yeah, but then on the last one with Takaiwa, I thought he carried Takaiwa, and Takaiwa's a good wrestler.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that should be arriving to me in a couple of days. So.
Okay.
Thought it was interesting. We had a lot of heat over putting the Hardys this high. That was one we got a lot of debate over.
Hey, where's Nova?
Nova is not on the list.
Oh my God.
Top 500. No, you know what? I saw him last Wednesday. He's top 500 easy.
Really?
He's not bad.
Because I saw him in that match. The last thing I saw was the UPW match where he was his debut.
You got tens. Come on, now you got tens on below Robert Thompson and Vinny Massaro, who I know both of those guys, and they are. I mean, and Robert Thompson's a friend of mine. They are not in tens on. Is like totally in a different league from those two guys.
Check out number 500, Dave.
Who's number 500? Ric Flair? Rob Van Dam. Okay. That's not fair either. Okay, I'm looking at 499. Oh wait, this 499 is Shane McMahon. He's probably better than that too. Although I mean he's a part-time guy though. So
yeah, well I saw that the Rob Van Dam thing. They put it that low. We've always hated him, but was that match he had against Chris Daniels at UPW show? That was such a dog crap match for. That was like.
Was it really? I never saw the match.
Worst Chris Daniels might have ever seen. It was Rob Van Dam with his spot, wander around the ring, point to himself. Like for 3 minutes, hit another spot, point to himself some more. Hey, is Frank Parker that good? Because I've only seen him doing TV jobs. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's really like. I just don't know. Really old school. He wrestles like like a Mid-South guy from 1977 or something like that. I mean, really like a solid old school kind of wrestler. Death and Destruction. Him and Roger Anderson are like a great, old school heel tag team. Like really good. You got Rey Mysterio Jr. at 155 below Robert Thompson and Boyce LeGrand and these. I don't know. Rey Mysterio, the 2001 with no knees, Rey Mysterio Jr. is better than those guys. Much better. Much better. Look at those matches that he had when WCW was going out of business every week on TV. Look at the last pay-per-view match. The last pay-per-view match he had was his best match in a long time. Yeah, with Romeo and those guys, with Kidman, with Romeo and Skip. Best guy in that match. I thought he was the guy that was along for the ride in all those matches. I mean, I love Rey Mysterio Jr. No, he knows how to work. I mean, that's the thing. He knows how to work at a top level. I mean, his knees are shot and everything. He can't do all the spectacular. He's not spectacular anymore, but God, as a babyface, he's awesome.
I mean, just the way he does, sells and makes comebacks and everything, he's like really good. These other guys, I mean, Vinny Massaro is just a guy who does moves out of a video game who, I mean, I guess I shouldn't hold the physique against him, but, I mean, he's not a great worker. I mean, he's a good independent worker on an independent show, but if you put him on, like a major TV, there's no way. Not yet. Not yet anyway.
The break of this is it is for like the period is like the last 6 months and it's a current right now sort of thing. That's why a lot of the guys who are WCW guys aren't on the list. I just wanted to cut it up. I disagree with you about Vinny Massaro. I think he's a really good carrier of green. The really good Vinny Massaro matches I've seen have been against very, very green APW like high flyers. And like, I mean, guys like God, what's his name? The guy with the bad
Miyaki.
Hair. What?
Miyaki,
yeah, like
Miyaki France.
He had a good match against Miyaki France. He had like those guys, like that level.
He's all right, and Robert Thompson's actually a very good worker. It's just, I don't know, he's not really in the best condition or anything like that as compared to. I mean, if Robert Thompson, he's a great athlete. If he got in good condition, he has the potential to be really, really good. But I mean, I just can't, put him against, above someone like a Tenzon or a Rey Mysterio. I mean, they're in a different league.
Well, you talk about Robert Thompson. He's not obviously like cut, but I saw him go. He went 30 in that tag match at the APW show, 30 minutes. When it wasn't blown up at the end of it. And there's a lot of these guys on this list who are big time guys who haven't gone 30 minutes in a long, long time, and I don't know if they could.
This is the top 10 that they have on the Death Valley Driver. Number 1 is Kawada, which I would certainly not argue. Number 2 is Benoit, which I would not argue. Number 3 is Santo, which I would argue. But 4, Yuji Nagata, who's a hell of a talent. 5 is Minoru Tanaka, who's a hell of a wrestler. 6 is Blue Panther's a hell of a wrestler too. 7 is Hashimoto, who is, I've seen Hashimoto in phenomenal matches. I don't know if I would rate him that high. 8, Yuki Ishikawa. I've never been that thrilled with him, but he's good. 9 is Suwa, who's a very good worker. Suwa, and 10, Tiger Mask. Very good. He's got Silver King 11. WCW missed the boat on him, didn't they? Oh boy. Let's go to Alex in Puerto Rico. What?
Wrestling Observer Live 500 of the guys WCW missed the boat on.
Yeah, I know.
Look at Regal. Good God.
Yeah. Just think if they had signed. The
funniest thing on Raw last night was Regal sitting at the commentary booth, minding his own business, and Jim Ross made a comment about how the Duchess of Queensberry was going back to driving her truck. And the look on Regal's face, just from a long shot, was the funniest thing I've seen on Raw in so long. So underutilized in that company.
Oh, how about the look on his face when his face was in the Duchess's crotch on the pay-per-view?
Yes. He is so awesome. Where the hell is he on that list?
I didn't notice where he was. Anyway, let's go to Alex in Puerto Rico. Alex, what's going on?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I don't know. You tell me.
This Saturday night in Hatillo, Iman Latin Wrestling's having a show.
Really?
What?
Yes, the most underrated worker on the independent scene here in Puerto Rico, or in the United States. Hollywood star Teron Giannetti is fighting in the main event against Olympico.
Oh, I don't know those guys.
Olympico? From EMLL?
No, it's got to be different Olympico.
Okay. Well,
against Teron Giannetti.
Hey, how's Ray Gonzalez?
Well, he's Universal Champion again.
We know that.
Paparazzi can cut a damn promo better than half the wrestlers in WCW.
Is he? I'm sure he can. But now, is he better than Triple H?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
Paparazzi can cut a promo.
Paparazzi's a different guy. Paparazzi's an IWA guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how we got to him, but that's okay.
And the hardcore match, the paramedic is taking on Crazy Boy. That's a psychotic Matt Hardy.
Oh, Crazy Boy?
Yeah, he's like Matt Hardy, but psychotic.
I wonder if that's the same Crazy Boy from Texas.
No, that's a different Crazy Boy.
Oh, okay, it's Puerto Rican Crazy Boy. Because there's a Crazy Boy that worked out of northern Mexico, maybe Juarez. It was Juarez, yeah. And he sometimes worked Texas. He was very good.
Those are
what about
Those are the 2 matches that are worth seeing.
Okay.
And this new company, Caribbean Wrestling Association, is coming up very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened on Raw last night? Since I don't get TNN on my system.
On Raw,
well, you're lucky last night.
Yeah, I know. Chyna wrestled Trish Stratus and killed her dead. And Hunter and Steve Austin destroyed Undertaker and Kane, destroyed Kane's elbow. By the way, Kane they're doing an injury angle with Kane. I think, based on what I was told, he'll be at it. I don't think he's going to be on TV tonight, or at least wrestling on TV tonight. It's a short-term thing, but, he'll be back. I wonder if he's going to do I guess he'll probably do Saturday pay-per-view from England.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, WCW is going to be on TNN, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
June 16, right?
It's not 100%, but that's what everyone's looking at, yeah.
Good, because I'm going to the Hatijo show, showing up a sign that we want TNN.
Okay. Call up your local cable station, say we need our TNN.
No, because I'm going to get some friends of mine that are going to the IOW show in Hatijo, and we're going to start chanting Goldberg as a rib.
For some reason, I think there's going to be a lot of Goldberg chants. I don't know why.
Well, we're going to find out soon enough.
Ricky Banderas is the new IWA champion for the second time.
Yeah, heard he won it back. He's going to Japan this week.
Is he going to the new WCW?
Ricky Banderas, not that I'm aware of.
Miguel Perez?
No, not that I'm aware of.
How about
I would think when it comes to those guys, I would probably know.
How about Carly Colon?
Oh boy. Oh no. Carly Colon's going to be a Puerto Rico guy. I mean, forever. He's like, those guys.
Yeah, he sucks as a babyface.
Does he? I hear Eddie Colon's very good though.
Yeah, he's very good. Don't get me wrong. He could fight the cruiserweights in WCW and have a good match.
Yeah.
But with Carly Colon, they should turn him heel.
Mm-hmm.
Or Stacey Colon, turn her heel and join Ray Gonzalez.
The Stacey Colon.
And then the Colones could all feud with each other.
Oh, yeah, like the McMahons.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, they haven't...
Can Carlos Colon's wife cut a promo? Carlos Colon's wife, can she cut a promo?
I don't know. I never seen... Maybe she's ugly as hell and Carlos Colon is like...
It's got nothing to do with looks. We're just wondering if she can cut a better promo than Linda.
No, I never seen her on TV.
She can't? Uh-oh. Well,
that's bad
That's why she's not on TV. There's your answer.
They turned Super Gladiator babyface after his match with Black Boy. His name is Ricky Fontaine.
Yeah, I heard that.
They cut a promo.
I don't know why I know this stuff, because I shouldn't. But anyway.
They cut a promo with this Kevin Nash wannabe with Ivana in a hotel room.
Is that Russ McCullough?
Yeah, wannabe Kevin Nash.
I just saw Russ McCullough on OVW before he got the haircut. And I don't think that facially he looks like Kevin Nash, but it's just like he looks like a skinny Big Show wearing Kevin Nash's wrestling attire.
He probably went to Kevin Nash's garage sale.
He may have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Kevin Nash is doing any garage sales.
Okay, Alex, we gotta get running now. Okay, Alex.
One more thing.
Okay, make it quick.
Can I get a copy of a sample issue of Wrestling Observer?
Yes, you can.
Okay, Bryan has my home address.
I'll give it to Dave. I'll provide him with the information.
Okay.
Brian emails him. We email each other all the time, so it's no problem. Okay.
You hear?
Yes.
I'm gonna see if the results are sent to you next week.
Okay. Good enough. All right, let's go to Sean in PA. Sean, what's going on?
Oh, my God. What's up with these callers? Alex, dude, you keep asking for, like, free shit all the time. Just go jump off a bridge and do the world a favor.
I hate to tell you this, but Alex is not listening because he was calling from a payphone.
Oh,
he cannot hear your rant.
Hey, for
they have bridges in Puerto Rico?
Yes,
who cares in Puerto Rico? Nobody's...
Hey, no racist stuff. Let's go.
No, but it's like, hey, for supposedly being smart fans, a lot of the internet people are morons, Like, that list for WCW people was the 23 to 24 guys that's been out there for at least a week. You think they would have read it by now.
Yeah.
But anyway, with Raw last night, what's up with Triple H's murdering test? I mean...
What's up? What's different from that from every other Raw?
No, but it's like, hey, that guy's never going to get over. And Triple H probably puts himself over in, like playing cards, or, he wouldn't even do a job like in a swimming pool or something.
He cheats. Cheats at cards. That'd be a good gimmick. You could play cards with the acolytes and cheat.
Yeah.
No, and in China, man, she, I have never seen an uglier woman in my life than...
I have.
Well...
I have.
God,
I've seen many.
No, her Playboy thing's done, and, nobody... She doesn't have anything to fall back on, really. So just keep her off TV and, just be done with it.
Oh, I hope that she's off TV. She just got... I mean, when I saw that thing, she's got nothing to offer. I mean, I know WWF thinks that they can turn her heel and do a big feud with Lita. People are really going to be into it, but I'm not excited about it myself. Yeah, I know. That interview really set it up, boy.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, watching Raw last night, man, it almost felt like I was watching 1997 again with the same matches, same guys on top. I could have thrown a tape in and, it would have been the same show. And, WWF needs to get their act together because they've got a great product, don't get me wrong, but, I mean, it's the same guys on top. It's just like what happened with WCW, and, it's just like, it's almost like they don't even care. Because the summer programs are just going to be the same guys.
They care. It's just that Vince McMahon has the mentality, and whether it's his own opinion or reinforced, whatever. I mean, he's his own guy. I mean, ultimately, he makes the final decision. He sees, Steve Austin, Triple H, and The Rock, and Undertaker, and Kane as like top guys, and he doesn't mentally see the other guys as top guys, unfortunately for them. And the problem is they've mixed and matched these guys so much. It's like the All Japan syndrome, where what, those other guys aren't as good of workers, but goddamn, how many times can you watch Sal and Kobashi?
What other guys are you talking about? Benoit? Angle?
No, I'm talking about from the All Japan standpoint, why they wouldn't elevate somebody else. No. Benoit and Angle are better workers than the guys they have on top. But, they're 5'10" guys, 5'9" guys, and Vince is a 6'2" guy, and it's that thing we talk about in every single show.
Yeah, well, that's about it, guys. I'll let you guys get some more calls. Thanks.
Let me go through a couple of emails, and we'll finish up with some phone calls as well. Rumor verification. Is it true that Crash Holly got plastered? WF New York legit and embarrassed the company, causing Crash to get depushed last year. Yes, that's true.
He has had some alcohol problems.
Yes, which is why they did that angle last night. There was a reality to it. It was their, kind of inside joke, kind of like the Hawk thing, and kind of like the Scott Hall thing, yes. The China...
So they could have Jim Ross remind fans to drink in moderation.
That was whatever. And then Paul Heyman said, "You're one to talk." There was some interesting interplay, by the way, on that show. Actually, there is almost every week. Yeah, the China Lita spanking challenge was insane. Not the kind of good insane either. China threatens to spank Lita on live TV, and Lita giggles because we all know she really wants it. I'm being sarcastic. Great angle to air after the Gallup poll comes out. I know Vince is saying China is going to get hers at the end. Actually, that's what I'm afraid of.
China getting spanked at the end?
Yeah, I guess.
That's appalling.
Did Ric Flair ever refuse to do a job? Yes, many times. Many times. Let's see. Luger comes to mind. Who else? Just the Luger one's the real famous one. Let's see. Actually, many times with Luger. Which is probably why Luger was... When Nash and Luger had their little clique, and Ric Flair was kind of teetering on the edge, and they were making him look like a fool every week, Luger was the one back there going like, I'm going to get back at him because 10 years ago he wouldn't do a job for me. That's true. That's totally true. Let's see. What wrestlers has Steve Austin refused to work a program with? The only one I know of is Jarrett. Anyone else?
What about Billy Gunn?
That was he refused to work a match with Billy Gunn because he was sore from a match the night before at a pay-per-view. And they were going to do a TV match. Billy might drop him on his head like he did to Benoit. Yeah, I guess he wouldn't do a TV match with Billy Gunn, but he had no problem. He never turned down a program with Billy Gunn, which thank God they never suggested. But Russo did try to put the program with Jarrett and Austin, and he just said no way. This is from Jesse, who goes, in response to the previous email about violence in America and Japan. I lived in Japan for 2 years. While it may be true that the wrestling isn't as violent, actually aspects of the the underground wrestling is more violent. There's without a doubt a high level of violence in their cartoons, movies, and video games, all marketed to children. The culture is full of garbage style. Yes, they aren't nearly as violent, not even comparable. That's the people themselves. What should tell us is that it's not the more violent product that leads to violence, but rather a more violent culture leads to violence. Let's see. WF.com is reporting that Mark Henry will be working a dark match tonight. Looks like he could be close to returning, depending on...
How about tolerance?
Yeah, he's worked dark matches before, though.
How about tolerance as far as it being acceptable to be violent society? I mean, if you ever look at, they do it in movies all the time, and I'm sure a lot of parents are like this as well. Your kid gets in a fight, dad asks, "Did you win?" That's the first question, as opposed to, "You should not be getting in fights, young man." You know what I mean? I don't think in Japan it's acceptable to go around beating the hell out of people.
No, they're getting more Americanized, but it's really, I mean, as far as like a place to go, it's so safe. I mean, that's the thing that I always remember when I would go there. It's like, you could walk around at 3 a.m. in Tokyo, and, you don't worry about, like, getting mugged or anything. I suppose it exists, but, no one seems scared. No one's scared in the culture. Okay, now we're going to go to Randy. Randy, what's up?
Hey, Dave and Bryan, how's it going?
Hey. It's going really good.
Good. Guys, I just wanted to say, as far as Raw last night, my thoughts on Raw, the low point obviously was the whole China Lita promo, and that was absolutely terrible. Nothing can compare to that. I used to cringe when Benoit would take the microphone. Now, these guys make Benoit's promos look pretty good. But I also wanted to say, a lot of people, and I know where you guys, I follow your website, and I think you guys are really good, even though I don't agree with you a lot. You know, I respect you guys. You guys are extremely knowledgeable.
Okay. If you agree less than half the time,
yeah.
You're in trouble. If you agree more than 90% of the time, you're also in trouble. If you're in between those two numbers, you're in pretty good shape.
I must be in pretty good shape then, guys.
Okay.
I just want to say, I understand where you two guys are coming from on the Triple H thing and all that. I understand that. Some of these, reading your backlash follow-ups on your internet site yesterday, I doubt very many people, I don't know, I just don't think they get it as far as it comes to Triple H. And call me crazy, but I kind of like this, this storyline right now where you've got Austin and Triple H having all the titles. Number one, it's never been done before, so it is fresh. Number two, I think people ought to realize it's only going to be temporary that they have all three major titles. I don't think
that anyone's concerned with the belts. It's not the belts. It's the lack of letting anyone else up to their level.
Yeah.
Belts don't mean, I don't think anyone. It's not even winning and losing. Hunter beating Jeff Hardy on that TV match meant nothing. Whether as far as it's how he did it, and that's where people see through it. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
That's where his heat comes from. He's not coming from, like who's booked to win a match. I mean, yeah, he has influence on that, and he got the pin on that pay-per-view. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's that they're not letting new guys in that top mix, and that's why they're going stale on top.
Sure. Well, I'm going to say, as far as Jeff Hardy, and it was good to see Jeff Hardy at least get that win over Triple H. I don't know if Jeff Hardy would be the guy that would be ready to be elevated big time.
He's probably not, but once he got there, why cut him off right away until you find out if he can hang? When Hunter first got the title, if he was treated like Kurt Angle for 4 months and then moved to the mid-card, and you know what I mean? I mean, he would end up being a mid-card guy if he was booked like that.
Yeah, when Hunter first won that belt, I don't think anybody thought he was ready.
Sure.
Yeah, you've got to give a chance to grow into it with Jeff Hardy. He probably wasn't
Jeff Hardy
ready.
may not have been ready for the main events or everything, but I'm sure he was ready for a run with the Intercontinental title if they wanted to do something with it. But clearly they didn't.
Possibly, I don't know. Hardy's got some work to go as far as the promos, and that goes. Now, Test has got a lot of work to go as far as, I like Test. He's got a lot of work to go as the promos. There might be a possibility of a program with Triple H. I don't think last night was the right time to say Triple H to appear weak to Test. I'm sure Test, I don't really know where they're going.
It's not a pure week. You're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
If they had done exactly what they did last night at the end, with Hunter destroying the guy with a chair, but they had done a 6-minute match with Test getting 4 minutes of really good offense, some near falls and things like that, Hunter would still have killed him at the end, but Test would have gained something. In this way, Test just looked like, just some, lamb being led to slaughter, just a piece of meat. So it's like, when Bryan pointed out, what would Ric Flair have done in that situation if the end result is, Rick, you've got to go over this guy and you've got to beat the hell out of him because you're in the main event on the next pay-per-view and he's not. It's like Rick would have sold his ass off, but at the end, Rick would look strong. This guy didn't give him that sell the ass off stuff before going right at the end. I mean, the end was the beginning. There's only 57 seconds.
Well, two things. I'll be brief here real quick. Just want to say, as far as that goes, if they do have a follow-up to that where Test comes in and gets the last laugh on Triple H, that would be quickly forgotten. Number two, I just want to say this. I don't want to sound
not
like
if they followed up on it. It could be a career maker for him.
Sure.
Triple H.
I don't know if they're going to follow up on it. And real quick, I don't want to sound like a Triple H mark. I do think that the comparisons to Hogan and Nash are a little unfair, pretty unfair, because Hogan and Nash.
In what sense?
Yeah, Hogan and Nash.
I mean, you're going to say work rate, of course, work rate, but nobody compares Triple H as a worker to Nash and Hogan. That's not what anyone means.
Sure,
as far as political maneuvering, I think it's very fair.
Well, here's a good point, guys. I guess I won't be too worked up about this until I see wrestlers go to their websites like Saturn and Jericho did when they were in WWF.
Oh, you'll never see it. Not in the WWF.
Wait a minute. You don't understand the politics of WWF. Can I tell you that those guys, I'm not trying to get those two guys in trouble because I'm not saying specifically, guys in the WWF say the same things about Triple H that they said about Hogan and Nash. They know they can't say it publicly because you can't do it in WWF like you can in WCW. It's just a politically different structure. You can't
in WCW, we had, we did that show from Nassau, and there was like Kidman coming on the show in the arena. Everyone's running down the company. And you will never, ever see anyone in the WWF doing that. Shawn Michaels made a couple comments about Steve Austin on that Bite This, and he was off TV for a year.
Yeah.
That's right. It's just a different thing. That's right. Just look at, Michaels made some comments about Austin, and they wouldn't even let him near the company for a long time.
Yeah.
So you can't do, if Perry Saturn were to go on his website and go, you know what, this is what Triple H has done to this company. If he were to do that, Perry Saturn would be out of a job. And he knows it, so no one's going to do that.
If you're going to
so you can't say that.
Yeah. One thing is, if you're going to get your character questioned and your status as a team player questioned, who better to do it than Shawn Michaels? That really adds credibility, doesn't it? No, I'm just kidding. So, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay. This is an interesting one, which nobody's talked about. It goes, it's probably too easy to tell, but will WCW be under the same no pile driver policy the WF has? If so, how will that affect Shane Helms' Vertebreaker? I would expect that there'd be the same rules for both companies. They don't want guys dropped on their head, and more power to them for that. And I think that some of those moves, like I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of tombstone pile drivers or suplexes on the top of the head or vertebreakers and things like that. I would expect that when they see Shane Helms do that move, they were going to go to him and go, you need a new finisher. I could be wrong, but that's what I would expect.
Or you could do it differently and just drop them totally on their back.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, God, please.
Read it.
This is about Andre. It goes, how do you know how tall Andre was? What's your proof? Have you ever seen him in person? I probably saw him in person 50 times, 100 times. Jesus Christ. I saw him wrestle Ernie Ladd. They were the same height. Ernie Ladd's 6'9". Okay? Let's see.
It's like looking at Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle last night in the ring together, looking to be the exact same height, and claiming that Kurt Angle is 6'5".
Even though Kurt Angle is listed in many reports as being 6'2", but Kurt Angle is not 6'2", no matter what anyone says, because he's the same height as Benoit. Let's see. Who do you predict to win between Pele and Frank Trigg? Whew, that is tough. I didn't even know that they were fighting for sure.
It's a soccer fight?
It's at the next Pride. It's at the next Pride. With the knees and everything. It's a tough fight. Pele. I could lose that one, though. Let's see. I never knew there were 500 wrestlers currently working. Oh, yeah. Where's Bryan Alvarez on the list? I actually didn't look at it.
I'm not on the list.
This guy who did the top 500 needs to wake up. Van Dam at number 500, and he's basing off indie matches. Come on, Chris Daniels that high. He's an indie mark. Chris Daniels was all injured, and this is why his match with RVD was bad. It wasn't Rob Van Dam's fault. Okay. Whatever happened to Steve and Sean Simpson? I don't know, but I think that they're living in Texas, though. Toway 20 spots higher than Triple H. Yeah, that is bad, let me tell you. Toway is like good luggage, sturdy and durable, but he's got to be carried. He's the Japanese Johnny Ace. Let's see. Steve Regal is at number 15, so you know. Let's go to Mike. Mike, what's going on? Mike.
My question is, lately you've been saying that the WWF is aware of the complaints, and ironically, a lot of them come from your show, but it seems like the product is so stale as of late, and they're just content with putting guys like Kane and Austin and Undertaker in there. And my question to you is are they really aware of the fans complaining, or is that just like the...
Oh, they're too aware. They're too aware of it, but what will happen, and this is the reality of what's going to happen, and I was told this a long time ago, is they are not... I don't anticipate any moves being made until you start getting noticeably lower buy rates and noticeably lower live attendance. Now, the last buy rate was the biggest, not buy rate, but the most buys for a pay-per-view in history, which was Mania. This one obviously is going to be down. If it's down really, really bad, maybe it'll say something. And if the ratings start dropping significantly, maybe it'll say something. The problem is, and this is the argument that I have, is it is much easier to make a new star when your ratings are high than all of a sudden when your ratings are low and less people are watching. It's harder to make your stars at that point, so they should be concentrating on making the stars before they go down rather than go, we're going to ride this hand, and then when it starts going down, then we'll start mixing new people in. That's just the deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like Benoit and Jericho right there. What would be so wrong with having like a Jericho fight, like say at Austin for the belt, or Benoit against Triple H? Because if you remember last year when Jericho lost, when he was screwed out of the title when he won it, as way as I recall, that the fans are very, very pissed off at that, and they really wanted Jericho to win. It seems like whenever they push him up, they put him in the middle, stuck with the feud with Regal. Granted, Regal's a great worker, but that doesn't do anything for Jericho or Benoit in the long run.
I don't even think that Jericho is really ready anymore.
Well,
he's been put back down in the mid-card so many times that, he lost whatever edge that he had for a while.
No, people don't take Jericho as seriously. And when Jericho last summer was doing the feud with Hunter, and did the Last Man Standing, that's when he was ready to be elevated.
Right,
and when
there.
He wasn't, and now would probably be now would be the hardest time because he's been so established. He just got beat by Rhino last night. So
Yep.
I mean, it's basically getting very boring. I mean, Kane. I mean, we've seen that. How many times have we seen those matches already? Kane. We saw it at the night after King of the Ring. I think a couple of years ago when Austin fought Kane when he won the belt. I mean, wow. I mean, can we please see something new? I mean, what is it going to take for McMahon to realize that his product sucks right now and he needs to change it when nobody shows up in the arena, which unfortunately won't happen. But basically, it's what's
when arena attendance goes down, they'll know that they have to shake things up. Unfortunately, like with WCW, the problem is that once that's happened, it's probably a little bit on the late side to do it. But that's probably what it's going to take. The problem is they. Clearly they don't have confidence in those guys, including Angle, and I don't know why that is, but they don't.
And another thing is, once business starts to go down, there's going to be more panicking. They won't give guys as much of a chance to have, if business were falling and they decided, okay, we're going to give Jericho the shot or whatever, and ratings didn't immediately turn around, or even if they even dipped just a little bit, they would totally panic and he'd be dead.
Well, he'll be the skate. Yeah, like if like not this pay-per-view, but let's say 2 pay-per-views from now. Let's say the buy rate on this one is down and the buy rate on the next one is down, and they go, okay, we need something new. We're going to do Austin against Jericho. And if it's down, unlike these previous 2 where no one's getting the blame, that one Jericho gets the blame because everyone's going to go, hey, you put Jericho in the main event and look what happened.
Yep.
Because he's not the constant, and he's going to be the one who it's judged by.
Is there any plans at King of the Ring, Dave? Are we going to have, like, maybe even possibly one of those guys winning, Jericho or Benoit, or just going to be with the same old hand like Kane or some?
I wonder if they're even thinking that far in advance. You got to remember they only book, usually 1-2 weeks ahead. So I don't, like everyone's asking me who's going to win King of the Ring. I don't even think they even know who's going to be in King of the Ring, let alone who's going to win it. I mean, they may know. I don't know that, but I'm just thinking, just judging by the way that they book, it's not long-term booking because, hey, who knows who's going to be injured or who's not going to be injured? I mean, there may be vague plans to, like, give it to Jericho or something, but I don't know.
So maybe what do we got to say? We got to go and tap Triple H's leg or something to get him out so we can push somebody else up there? I mean, basically that's what it is. I mean, he, like, runs the freaking show. It's like...
He doesn't run the show. He doesn't run the show, but he has a lot of influence, and he protects his spot like Austin does and like Undertaker does. They all protect their spot. I mean, that's just the reality of not having guaranteed contracts. Your income depends on it. There's only so many 7-figure spots on the card, and if you got one, you sure as hell don't want to lose it.
That one last thing, Dave. Wouldn't you say that if by putting these fresh guys in there, more money comes into the company if the buy rates are higher, correct? So if these guys are so smart, why wouldn't they want to elevate the younger guys this way? They don't
because they're
losing their spot at the top where they're making all this money.
They're not looking at it in the same way.
They would be putting someone else in their spot, and someone else would be taking the cash they should be getting for headlining a pay-per-view.
Well, if they're headlining with somebody, don't they split the cash, or is it goes based on who's going to win and lose? I mean, how do they...
It doesn't. It's not based on who's going to win or lose. It depends on your spot on the card. And even if business were to go up, the difference between what a mid-card guy makes and the top 3 or 4 guys makes is millions of dollars. It's like, I'm guessing that a Benoit is probably making between $600 and maybe $800, and those other guys that we're talking about are probably making $2 million plus. And then the top guys, could be making more than that. So it's like it's tons of money difference. So even do those guys want to move? If it's like, let's just say like one of those guys moves down to an $800,000 spot and they're making $2 million, it's like you want to protect that spot. It's just in your financial best interest.
Well, I think that they should do something. I mean, as far as like restructuring of the contracts, or put some incentives in there for at least main eventing a pay-per-view, because again, Vince is going to just kill himself basically.
I think that they're very confident in the way their contracts work. They're not in any mood to change them. And if I was them, because I think the contracts work very well for Vince. If I was Vince, I wouldn't change it unless I was forced, and no one's going to force you because it's not going to. These guys aren't going to ever organize. So I mean, for Vince, it works.
So basically, we're going to see the same old thing for the next few months until he decides, well, it's not working, then we got to go with the new. Because ultimately, either Triple H or Austin are going to turn and beat the hell out of each other. Then, if not, The Rock is going to come and ultimately get the revenge on them. So, I mean, we could see it a mile away. I mean, it's like...
Yeah. We've got to get running, okay? We're actually late on our time, okay? Okay. Just want to thank everyone for joining in. Tomorrow, we're going to have Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and we'll see everyone tomorrow at 5.